Hey there, Pratt, it's a game changer here. So just using my second account, one of my old ones, just to have a little scan at what I can see. So first of all, 75% in your attack are very, very respectable, and 48% is certainly well above average. So absolutely fantastic there, mate. Keep that up. So let's have a little see what we can see. Okay, so here we are at Pratt Attack Towers. Let's see what Game Changer's got for you. So first thing first, your spawn zones could be a bit further out. There is a golden rule, 2.5 squares per building gap, and then that will move your spawn zones further. I mean, naturally your base is more towards this way, so that's working okay. But you've got some close spawn zones here that could be used. Now, obviously, you're thinking over the top attack, and the mines there obviously work well for that. So that's good. I would maybe, if it was me, be having probably a mine here as well, because naturally I'd want to be going for this war factory. Now, you are obviously covering to some degree with this peacemaker, but if you look there, I reckon I could hit your war factory with what I use, which is well, let's suppose you've got GMLRS M270, supposing you've got HIMARS, which I'll have now in my main attack. If I park a tank, say there, where it says defense, your salvo will lock onto that quite comfortably. And while that's distracted, I could either take the salvo first, or I could take the war factory second, and then I've got the machine gun. And then obviously that SAM there isn't obviously going to affect us in terms of firepower, but quickly I've taken this quadrant out here, and the peacemaker still won't, chances are, have picked me up. So I think you need to either bring that peacemaker closer to this side, because I think you'll agree the first thing you and I would want to take out, I suspect, would be the war factory, because obviously that's going to generally have the most amount of attack in there. So that's obviously something to have a look at. Now just check your helicopters as well, because depending on what you're using, some of the DPS on the more attack combat helicopters, the Guardians and the like, is good, but the health isn't so good. So just make sure you're really going for the beefed up attack. Now, I've always used 2 to 3 Zeus in my attack, as well as the Red Eye. So normal Cobras and the like don't really trouble us, but the ones that do trouble us are generally these big fat boys, and I can't remember the name of it for a second, but you know, they're kind of like flying tanks, aren't they? The defense on them's quite good, so maybe that's you know, maybe a strategy where you're employing more of those to cause people bother would be excellent. Now peacemakers per se are fairly easy now. I'm getting used to them to get past. I mean, basically you just drive a tank along where these planes are going, and the peacemaker will lock onto that, and meanwhile you sneak up while that's doing, and obviously hit the peacemaker with your M270s and the like. So maybe have a think about having a second one of those in. I would probably have that one as your second peacemaker, because that'll give fantastic overlap between the two. So I'd maybe have a look at that being good. I do like the fact that you've got your salvos in there, because the salvos you can't bait, and that causes a bit more bother. And they're also the one of the only turrets that the HIMARS can't outrange. So the fact you've got a good salvo mix there is excellent. So keep that up. So observations for me, bring in a second peacemaker, probably that one there. That should fix this problem where you're more vulnerable towards having a tank parked, and obviously hit that war factory. Maybe change that machine gun there to salvo as well, as because that then would complement you know, the defense, because at the moment I could outrange that machine gun and take the war factory. And if I come from this angle here, where the salvo is, and go across, I could pretty much take this quadrant out with anything without anything picking us up, where maybe if you think about that with the two peacemakers extending the range by rejiggling those slightly, then that's going to work. Now another observation, your base is large, that's because you've got a lot in it. Now for me personally, and just for me personally, I don't have my helicopters in my base because they fly over walls. The new health obviously does make them a little bit stronger, but I have my helicopters outside my walls, and then I have my power plant outside the walls. And any other non-essential building is outside the walls. Where I do notice, obviously, with you having them inside the walls, you've naturally come up with a base that is quite large. And the problem with a large base, if I come from this side, I can hit you at this side, and this side is not going to necessarily pick you up. Although the peacemaker there, you can see, gives fantastic cover. But if I were to go for your... well, if I come from this side, as we discussed, I'm going to hit you from this angle, and these turrets over here aren't necessarily even going to, sense that that's happening. And that's the problem with a base that can be too large. You tend to find that you're spreading, yourself quite thinly, and that means you're not getting hit by any more than one turret at a time. So if you have a little think about how you might get hit by two turrets at any one time, that can cause people bother. I think we've mentioned as well that I've probably got an extra turret to you. So looking at your air defence, the fact you've got SAMs, to me, you're probably going to need flak in there as well. You probably want to be looking at least two, anti-air sort of turrets now that you've lost your heavy platform as a fixed wing anti-air. Obviously, you've got machine gun in there helping. Now, if you have got Zeus in your defence, one of the things I'm finding that's working really, really well against helicopters and the like is having two Zeus in my first slot. One Zeus comes out after 7 seconds. The second Zeus comes out after another 7 seconds. If you put both together, obviously you've got 14 seconds. But the amount of times people come in with helicopters, take out the flak and then don't spot the Zeus, because they're obviously quite small on the battlefield. But I tell you what, they do have to take some helicopters down. There's a video if you want to go into it, if you're quick. If you go into Alliance chat, there's a guy who's actually nuked us first, and then obviously sent in a full platoon of helicopters and lost his shit in seconds because the Zeus, he just hasn't spotted it. And I had a hidden flak behind a building as well. So that's kind of my sort of thoughts. Other things for me, 4 mines from that side, protecting what? Protecting the salvo, which will outrange me anyway, protecting the SAM. I would maybe just, I get the mines, but maybe 4 there. Okay, so what you're going to tell me is I'm not going to attack from that side, which is fine. But if you think what's at the other side of this mountain, there's not really much to protect there per se anyway. The danger spot for you, I would say, with this current base setup is that the war factory is vulnerable from this side and there's no mines in that area. Now, interestingly, if you were wanting the mines where they are now, then perhaps the best place for the war factory is in actual fact where the salvo is. And then your mines are justifiable and you've got that more tucked in and it's difficult to get at, isn't it? So you've got to kind of go through other things to get to your war factory. So maybe you could have a little sort of, tweak of that as well. If you want, my base, I'm not saying is the best. If you look, Capcom has got a very, very good base in defence stats. He works well, although I suspect he's going to be vulnerable now when the new plane comes on board. And I looked at Milton yesterday as well, and his defence stats are pretty high, certainly higher than mine. So maybe have a look at what those guys are coming up with and see what you can pick up. Now, I've always had a very, very high PvP level, so that's my excuse for only having a 49% defence, but considering I've had something like a 7,000 infamy, even when I was only a level 40 player, I've had my ass kicked left, right, centre from 50s and 60s for obviously quite some time. I like to think that's my reason for my low defence stats. But have a little look at that base as well, because that's another different format as well. But keep doing what you're doing, mate. I've been really impressed with what I've seen so far. I'm really, really pleased to have you on board. I kind of want to keep you under the radar a little bit as well, because I think my team at Fox might nick you before long. And to be fair, eventually I may probably either one of two things, either move you up to that team, or the way you're going and the way you're learning, I might even consider helping me train some of the other guys that are coming on board, because obviously you know your shit, and that's few and far between. So well done, mate. Really, really pleased with you. Thank you.